Hello and welcome to this special interview of France 24. Our guest today is Abdel Basset Sader, the president or chairman of the Syrian National Council. Good day to you.
Good day.
Mr. Sader, you have met the President of France yesterday in Paris. In your view, what was new from a political point of view from this interview?
Thank you. First of all, this meeting was very important. His Excellency François Hollande, the French president, welcomed the head of the Syrian National Council, as well as a high-flying delegation pertaining to that council, which means that France is dealing with the Syrian issue quite seriously. And France's position is clear and supports the Syrian revolution. As to the meeting itself, the meeting focused on three different points. First of all, the political aspect of the situation, including the setup of a transitional government, and that government is going to be responsible for the pre- and post-transitional period, which is of utmost importance. And number two, the local situation. Of course, we talked about the no-fly zones because Syrian refugees are now suffering in refugee camps, most especially in Jordan, and that's the reason we need to find a solution for those refugees. And this solution resides in the setup of no-fly zones far away from battlegrounds.
As regards these no-fly zones in particular, after meeting the French president, you said that he did not refuse the idea of no-fly zones. Did you obtain any guarantees in this regard?
Yes, François Hollande did not shrug that issue aside, most especially when we talked about statements made by the Turkish foreign minister, who said that his country could not be open to over 100,000 refugees, and wanted to create safe havens in Syria for the population to benefit from those areas and hence be protected from attacks. And the French president hence drew our attention on this very particular issue, and he said that this required the setup of such zones.
So, to go back to the interim government question, we know that other components of the opposition also want to form a government. So, what is the difference, and why go so fast? You said that this announcement will be made very quickly.
Of course. Now, how swift this solution will be found, well, this depends on discussions. We're now starting with discussions and consultations, and we're saying that such a transitional government should be set up after discussions are made with all groups pertaining to the opposition, including the Military Council, the Revolutionary Council, and the youth movement encompassing revolutionaries. And we also need to consult all those groups, the opposition, civil society. Important political figures should also be consulted for the creation of a transitional government able to manage this whole period. Now, as to the creation of the various projects, now, of course, this makes the situation more complicated and should not enable us to solve this problem within the Council, the Syrian National Council. We said that we are going to carry on with the consultation processes to create this government.
Another point, Mr. Sader, you mentioned the possibility of Bashar al-Assad's resignation. Did you discuss this with the French president yesterday?
Yes. France made a very clear position. The President, François Hollande, made a very clear position, and we'd like to thank him for this. And he understands our claims. Of course, there can be no solution if Assad and his clan stay in power. They are governing Syria in the shadow, and this governing clan is not... I'm not talking about the government nor the People's Council.
Other statements have been made, notably by the Vice Prime Minister of Syria in Moscow. What do you think? He mentioned the possibility of negotiating the resignation of Bashar al-Assad, but not as a precondition.
Those statements, we believe, are is an attempt for political recuperation. In other words, this is a general claim made by the international community, and this statement actually aims at destabilizing the opposition. This is a lure, and this regime is now trying to deceive us, and this is just a problem more than a solution.
So you cannot engage in a dialogue without this precondition being fulfilled.
There cannot be any negotiations if Assad stays in power, and after he steps down, we will be able to negotiate.
So if Assad steps down, with whom will you negotiate, and what guarantees will you have?
The clan, we believe, is responsible for the crimes and responsible for the situation, and after the clan steps down, we will no longer be experiencing any problems.
So you're not talking about Assad alone, but other personalities?
Of course, figures other than Bashar al-Assad. And after the clan steps down, we will be asking for the regime to step down. No, the Syrian state should remain. We will cherish and protect the institutions pertaining to the state, and we will negotiate with those who committed no crime, those who who did not participate in crimes, and the negotiation process will focus on the political transitional mechanisms and paving the ground for the next phases.
What guarantees will you ask for? Will the Alawites easily accept to leave power? They are governing Syria at the moment.
The governing clan in Syria, we believe, is a group of mobsters, and the Alawites are no representatives of that clan. We do not pertain to that clan, and despite the clan is trying to make the Alawite community believe that the departure, the step down of that clan would be tantamount to catastrophe to the Alawite community. The Alawite community pertains to the Syrian society and will be playing a very important role in the next phases.
Are you in touch with Alawite figures?
Yes, we are.
You also met Lakhdar Brahimi, the UN Special Envoy for Syria, and you have criticized him in the past. You've even asked him to apologize. So in your opinion, what is important with regard to your meeting with Lakhdar Brahimi, in spite of all these differences? Can you overcome the differences?
Yes, of course. Al-Brahimi is a well-versed diplomat, and of course we respect him, all the more since he's Algerian. He is from that country that battled, that struggled for its independence. Of course, some statements were quite hasty, and we criticized those statements made by or communicated by the media. Of course, we overcame those statements. Apparently, there's been some kind of a misunderstanding. The problem is Mr. al-Brahimi is the UN's special envoy, the Security Council's special envoy, and the Security Council is now has reached gridlock after the repetitive Russian vetoes, and we believe that the Council is working on the basis of outdated mechanisms dating back to World War II.
Would you support him him.
This will have a negative impact on Mr. al-Brahimi's mission and mandate. Of course, an international envoy, well, that's a very good thing, but
في المقابل نقول بأن نعول على هذه المهمة ونعطي الفرص
that a mission should not be an opportunity given to the regime, allowing the regime to commit further wrongdoings, and we do hope that al-Brahimi will take this into consideration.
Has he been very understanding in this regard?
Yes, we believe he understood the proposal. And that's why he understood the criticism made against his predecessor. And I really personally say that the massacres, slaughters were perpetrated during Kofi Annan's mission. Bombings, shellings of cities were carried out during his mission.
We've also learned, Mr. Seder, that you met Manaf Klaas. What did you discuss with him?
We met with Mr. Manaf Klaas to get to know him, upon his request, of course, and we wanted to listen to what he had to say. We, of course, support all those defections, and we endorse those defections, as I said, and we are also going to meet with all those people that are fleeing away from the regime. Now, as to the roles played by those personalities and figures, this will depend on quite a number of factors.
Are you also in touch with Prime Minister Hicmet Diab, who has defected?
Yes, we are.
What role could these well-known personalities play during this phase?
Those figures, as I said already, may be playing a role in tomorrow's Syria, which we want to create, should be addressed to all Syrians, and all the Syrians will be able to contribute.
To go back to the government, the transitional government, which you will be announcing soon, have you thought of the formation of this government? Will it really reflect all the strands of opinion?
Now, as to the opposition, the government can only be strong if it reflects all the multifaceted Syrian society, and that's the reason why this government should be based on a consensus made by all the Syrian components.
And Manaf Klaas or Hijab, could they be part of the government?
It is too early to ask such a question, but our position is quite clear within the Syrian National Council. The person that will be at the head of the government should be benefiting from the support of all the various components within the Syrian opposition, the military council and the revolutionary council, and that person should have supported the revolution right from the start. And I think that this will be his legitimacy.
So are we to understand you exclude Klaas?
Other roles should be defined in relationship with those positions.
In the Syrian National Council, are you aware of the fact that there are other strands of the opposition who also want to form a government? Will this have an impact on your relationship with the West and all the stakeholders?
Now, we used that excuse quite a number of times, perhaps too many times, and I believe that the international community or the will of the international community has still not reached the right level and is not up to solving the crisis. What is now happening is actually the very beginning of the solution. The opposition was never united, and I'm talking about all the countries in the world. Within the Syrian National Council, we represent about 60% of the opposition, if not more, and we are in contact with everybody.
Does the Syrian National Council control the Free Syrian Army?
We are in coordination with the Free Syrian Army. We're also in contact with them, and we're trying to really press ahead. And we are also regulating those relationships with local councils.
When the Syrian Syrian National Council asks for a buffer zone and to have weapons, will you be able to keep the situation under control? Isn't there a coordination problem between the different parties within Syria? The groups don't all agree.
Wrongdoings were perpetrated, of course, and committed by individuals, isolated individuals. And, of course, we're against those wrongdoings. And we would like to comply with regulations and international law and human rights. And, of course, we are against summary executions without trials as to the no-fly zones and weapons, defense weapons. The Syrian population is now being slaughtered systematically.
Have you obtained any weapons?
Let me go on, please. We need to protect the Syrian population, and this can be done through international legitimacy and through the no-fly zone, in which we could provide defense weapons. And those are weapons we still haven't received, and we're asking for those weapons so as to be able to defend ourselves against aircraft and tanks.
There have been some cases of kidnappings between Lebanon and Syria. What's the Syrian Free Army's position?
We are against all types of kidnappings, and those kidnappings are tarnishing the image of the Syrian revolution, and that revolution symbolizes dignity and freedom, and that's the reason why we are not supporting those who are threatening people's freedom and dignity, and that's the reason why we are asking all those people responsible for kidnappings to release those kidnapped people, because this is tantamount to humanitarian issues. And as to what is now happening in Lebanon and the kidnappings that took place in Lebanon, we're asking our brothers responsible for those kidnappings to release their hostages, and we'd like to work all together so as to reach a solution.
Are you in contact with them?
No, we are not in contact with them.
Thank you, Mr. Abdel Basset Seider, President of the Syrian National Council. Thank you for watching this interview, and don't miss our next France 24 interview.
نلتقي في عدد جديد من برنامج حوار France 24. إلى اللقاء.